Hello students, welcome to the class of Software Engineering. In today's session, we will discuss about requirements engineering. First, let us begin with what is a requirement. Now, in the past video sessions, I have told in order to build a system, first you have to collect the requirements. So what is this requirement? If you know the meaning of a requirement, then only you can understand it and complete your project. So what is a requirement? It is a high level abstract statement of service that the system should provide. So it is a high level abstract statement of service. So what service your system should provide, or I can tell what functionality it should provide. Now you're developing one application or one website. If you're developing, what is the main feature in that, what it is going to provide. So that is your requirement. So your application will not have only one requirement, it can have n number of requirements. So if you make more requirements, then your system looks more good and it will be more useful to the people. Now we'll see the types of requirements. So we have seen about user requirements and system requirements. Now what do you mean by this user requirements? Yeah, requirements given by the user, I can tell. So user requirements are requirements given by the user. Mainly they will give in their own language, that is the natural language, your English. So statements in natural language plus diagrams. There might be some cases, there might be diagrams of the services the system provides. So they can give a rough sketch of how the system should look like, what service it should provide, all those. So these requirements are nothing but statements in natural language. Also, they can include the diagrams. So mainly written for the customers. Now, next one is system requirements. What is system requirements? Now, this is a structured document. This is very structured one, not like just specifying in natural language form. So this is a very structured document. So it will set each and every functionality of your system. So it will specify each and every functionality or service as well as the constraints also. It's going to specify the constraints in detail. You will be having in detail. So it defines what should be implemented. So that may be a part of contract between client and contractor. Okay. We'll see an example for you so that you will clearly understand what a requirement is. So example of requirements for MHC PMS system. So you have seen this system already. You have seen the case study in the first video session. So MHC PMS system, you know why it has been developed. Mainly to treat patients who are suffering from mental health problems. Now in that we'll see the requirements. So here first we'll begin with user requirement. User requirement. So what is the first user requirement? The MHC PMS shall generate monthly management reports. Isn't one user requirement is it will generate monthly management reports that I've told you earlier, showing the cost of drugs prescribed by each clinic during that month. So it will show the cost of the drugs prescribed by each clinic during that particular month. So this is one user requirement. Okay, now we'll come to system requirement. See, system requirement, when I'm specifying, you look at the user requirement. This user requirement only I will elaborate, because system requirement is nothing but detailed description, and it will be structured format. Structured format means, can you see here, it is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5. It goes like that. So this one user requirement, how I'm going to explain in detail. Just see. 1.1. On the last working day of each month, which is that 30th or 31st, a summary of the drugs prescribed, what all drugs have been taken, their cost, and the prescribing clinics shall be generated. So it is satisfying this one only. So here just the cost of drugs is told. Here you will be having what drugs, their cost, and which clinic. 1.2. The system shall automatically generate the report. So this is automatically generating the report for printing after 17 hours 30 minutes, that is 5:30, on the last working day of the month. So on the last working day of the, see, the here actually the requirement is told that it should generate monthly management reports, but didn't specify when it should generate, which day. So here clearly it is telling the last working day of each month. See how detailed it is. It's not on 29th or 28th, it's on 30th, last date. And also when it will be generated, the timings also they have told on the last working day after 5:30. That also after 5:30. So see here there is timing constraint. Now 1.3 we'll see. A report shall be created for each clinic. For each clinic, a report will be created and shall list. So this was not specified earlier. Just your, it's told that, yeah, it will generate monthly management reports showing the cost of drugs prescribed by each clinic. But here you are generating the report for each clinic and you will list the individual drug names, the total number of prescriptions, the number of doses prescribed, and the total cost also. 1.4. If drugs are available in different dose units. Now here the number of doses of the drug is also specified. Now if drugs are available in different dose units, example like 10 mg, 20 mg, separate reports shall be created for each dose unit. Now for the doses, based on the doses, separate report will be created. 1.5. Access to all cost reports shall be restricted to authorized users listed on a management access control list. So this report should be accessed only to the authorized users. So such a facility should be created in your system such that this report should be accessed to authorized users only. So these are the way of representing the system requirements. Next we'll see readers of user and system requirements. Who are the actual readers of user and system requirements? We'll see those. So one need to write requirements at different levels of detail. Why? One need to write the requirements at different levels of detail because different readers use them in different ways. So it depends on the reader. See, if you are giving a statement of the requirement, it might have different meanings, isn't it? Because the readers might understand in different ways. Their view might be different. So that is the thing. Now we are seeing the readers here. The readers of the user requirements are not usually concerned with how the system will be implemented and maybe managers who are not interested in the detailed facilities of the system. So who are the readers of user requirements? You can see is they are not concerned with how the system will be implemented mainly. So they are not much concerned about how the system will be implemented and maybe managers who are not interested in the detailed facilities of the system. So you can see here in this diagram client managers, system end users, client managers. Actually the it's the contract between the company and the client. No? So client managers are just using this user requirements. They are the readers. Even the system end users are those who are going to use the system. Even the client engineers, contractor managers, system architects. What about the system requirements? The readers of the system requirements need to know more precisely what the system will do. So here, these system requirements, those who are the readers of the system requirements, they need to know more precisely what the system will do because they are concerned with how it will support the business processes or because they are involved in the system implementation. So one can be system end users, client engineers, system architects, and another one is the software developers. So this is one extra reader, software developers. So here the readers of the system requirements will are actually mainly they have to know what their system is going to do in detail. So that's why these are the readers of your system requirements. The software developers are actually who are going to develop the system. So they must read these system requirements, which clearly tells about how the system means what the system will do. But in user requirements, you need not worry about the implementation of the system. Next, we have one more type, functional and non-functional requirements. Functional and non-functional requirements. So first we'll see what is functional requirements. These are statements of services the system should provide, how the system should react to particular inputs, and how the system should behave in particular situations. Okay. So functional requirements mainly specify what your system should do. In simple words, I can tell functional requirements specify what your system should do. So what functionality it should provide or what services it should provide. Non-functional requirements. Next is non-functional requirements. These are constraints on the services or functions offered by the system. So this is some constraints put on your system. So I've told about constraints, different types of constraints. It can be budget constraint, it can be schedule constraint. So these are the constraints on your services or functions offered by the system. So they can include timing, that is the schedule constraints, constraints on the development process. You need to use the same development process standard given by them, all those. Now we'll see in detail about functional requirements. Now we'll see in detail about functional requirements. Functional requirements. So I told that functional requirements mainly specify what your system should do. So these requirements depend on the type of software being developed. So these functional requirements mainly depend on the type of software which you are going to develop. Also, it depends on the expected users of the software who is going to use this system. And also, it depends on the general approach taken by the organization when writing the requirements. When expressed as user requirements, functional requirements are usually described in an abstract way that can be understood by system users. So functional requirements are expressed in abstract way which makes the readers to understand, readers or the users of the system to understand easily. Okay. So we'll see one example now. Now we'll see the examples for functional requirements for MHC PMS system. We'll take the same one, MHC PMS system. So first functional requirement, the user shall be able to search the appointment list for all clinics. So first requirement here, functional requirement is this system, that is MHC PMS system, should make the user easily able to search the appointment list for all the clinics. You can search for the appointment list for all clinics. That is one functional requirement. Second one, the system shall generate each day for each clinic a list of patients who are expected to attend appointments that day. So the MSCPMS system should be able to generate for each day and for each clinic the list of patients who are expected to attend who are having that appointments on that day. Next, each staff member, so whoever is using this system, no staffs, MHCPMS system, it can be patient or nurse or receptionist or administrative staff, they should have one uniquely identified employee number. So here they've told it's a 8-digit unique number. So they should have some employee number in order to access this system. Okay. Now we'll see the non-functional requirements. Non-functional requirements. So they are the requirements. Yeah. So which are not directly concerned with the specific services delivered by the system to its users. So one point I left out in functional requirements is the functional requirements should be complete and consistent. We are using these terms always in software engineering. Functional requirements should be complete and consistent. So what is the meaning of complete and consistent? Completeness means what? Completeness means that all services required by the user should be defined. Okay? All services required by the user should be defined. And consistency. Completeness is all services required by the user should be defined. Consistency means that requirements should not have contradictory definitions. Okay? So it should not be ambiguous. So the requirements should not have contradictory definitions. Next, non-functional requirements. So these are nothing but the constraints, I can tell, on the services or functions offered by the system. So non-functional requirements, they apply to the system as a whole. Okay. So see, they are the requirements that are not directly concerned with the services what your system will provide. It is the functional requirements which are going to specify what your system should do. But here it's not going to it's not directly concerned with the services that your system will provide. So non-functional requirements apply to the system as a whole rather than individual system features or services. So they specify how the system works. They specify how the system works mainly. Okay. So they are being applied to the system as a whole. We are considering as a whole, not like each component or individual subsystem we are taking. No. So non-functional requirements such as performance, security, or availability usually specify or constrain characteristics of the system as a whole. So you have non-functional requirements like performance, security, safety, etc. Now, non-functional requirements are often more critical than functional requirements. Why? See, if a system fails to meet a non-functional requirement, that means the whole system is unusable. The whole system is unusable. So think that non-functional requirements are very, very important. So for example, if an aircraft system, you are taking an aircraft system, okay, it does not meet its reliability requirements, then what happens? If an aircraft system does not meet its reliability requirements, it will be not certified as safe for the operation, isn't it? So, like that. Now, if an embedded control system fails to meet its performance requirements, then the control functions will not operate correctly. Okay. Now we'll see the classification of non-functional requirements. We'll see the different types of non-functional requirements. So here we have the very big diagram. So you can see here we have non-functional requirements. Under that we have three categories: product requirements, organizational requirements, external requirements. Under product requirements, you have efficiency requirements, usability requirements, dependability requirements, security requirements. And under efficiency requirements, you have performance requirements, space requirements. And under organizational requirements, you have environmental requirements, operational requirements, and development requirements. Under external requirements, you have regulatory requirements, ethical requirements, and also you have legislative requirements, and then you have accounting requirements, safety or security requirements. So, how this is the classification of non-functional requirements. So we will discuss in detail about each one. First, we'll begin with the product requirements. So this is specifically to your product. So these requirements specify the behavior of the software. Behavior of the software. Okay, now you can see that we have here just one thing I can tell. Performance requirements. What does it mean? Comes under efficiency requirements. So how efficient your product is. So performance requirements tell how fast the system must execute and how much memory it requires. Okay. Then other than that, any other reliability requirements that gives the acceptable failure rate, the rate of failure occurrences of your system. Then security requirements, we have how secure your system is, and usability requirements, how much it can be used by the user. Usability requirements. Dependability requirements. Dependability requirements will include obviously reliability and security. So that's why I've written reliability requirements. That gives the acceptable failure rate, rate of failure occurrences you need to see. Then security requirements. Now second type is organizational requirements. These requirements are actually derived from the policies and procedures set by the customers and developers organization. So organizational requirements, these are the requirements that are derived from policies and procedures which are set by the customers organization as well as the developers organization. So examples include we have operational process requirements. What does it tell? It defines how the system will be used. So operational, how it should be used in operation. So define how the system will be used. How the system will be used. So that is operational requirements. So mainly it tells how your system should be used. Then we have the development process requirements where it is here. Development requirements which tell specify the programming language, which programming language should be used. Then the development environment, that is your environmental requirements. The development environment or process standards to be used. Okay. Yeah. That is in your development process requirements. Sorry. That is in your development requirements I'm telling. It mainly specify the programming language, the development environment which you are using, or the process standards to be used. Next we have the environmental requirements. They specify the operating environment of your system. They specify the operating environment of the system. Next is external requirements. We'll come to external requirements, which are externally to your system. So these are the external factors I can tell. This covers all requirements that are derived from factors external to the system and its development process. So these may include regulatory requirements. Regulatory requirements we have which set out what must be done for the system to be approved for use by a regulator, such as a central bank. So regulatory requirements are which actually specify for this what must be done for the system if it needs to be approved for use by a regulator, such as a bank if it wants to use that app or the software built. Then what is the regulatory requirements? Legislative requirements. Legislative requirements. What does it do? Legislative requirements that must be followed to ensure that the system always operates within the law. We need to see. And one more, we have ethical requirements. Ethical requirements ensure that the system will be acceptable to its users and the general public. So we need to see that the system will be acceptable to the users and the general public. So it's not going to cause any harm to the people. So these are the different types of non-functional requirements. Non-functional requirements. Next, we'll see the metrics for specifying these non-functional requirements. How do you measure these non-functional requirements, which you have learned earlier? So we have certain properties and we can measure it. Now, when I talk about non-functional requirement, one property is speed, which is related to the performance. No? So how do you measure it? Processed transactions per second. For 1 second, how many transactions can be processed by the system? User bar event response time. So what is the, see, suppose an user clicks on something, an event occurs. So what is the response? So you have to calculate the response time, how much fast the response has been received. Screen refresh time also, refreshing the screen time. It should be done in a fraction of seconds. Second property is size. So measure M bytes in bytes you can, or number of ROM chips. Next property, ease of use. So how much means how easily you will be able to use that system or learn that system. You have got the system now. How easily you will be able to use that system. So how will you measure? Training time, some time to be trained to use that system, number of help frames. Next property, reliability. So what do you mean by reliability? How do you measure it? It's the rate of failure occurrence. Okay, mainly it is you're calculating the rate of failure occurrence, mean time to failure, probability of unavailability, also availability. Next property, robustness. Robustness, how will you measure? It's nothing but time to restart after failure. If some failure has occurred and how much time it takes, the system takes to restart it. So that is also important. Percentage of events causing the failure. Probability of data corruption on failure. So robustness is mainly you're seeing how much time it takes to restart your system after failure occurs, and what is the percentage of events causing failure and how much data has been corrupted on the failure. Portability, next last property. Percentage of target dependent statements, number of target systems. So portability means how portable your system is. Can you move it from one operating system to another operating system? So that you have to measure by number of target systems. So these are the metrics for specifying non-functional requirements. Thank you.